We're journeying through what we're calling Yosef and his brothers, right? That's our topic. Yosef and his brothers. The story of Yosef and his brothers is a historical fact. It happened. But in addition, it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for Golus. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov also were historical figures, but in addition, they're metaphors. But they're for very different things. Yosef and his brothers, Vayeshev, Meketz, Vayigash, Vayechi, are parshes that are illustrating, by example, in metaphor, what a Golus is. And of course, the striking feature of Golus that we talked about last time was sleep and dreams, right? It's not coincidental that you have a bunch of dreams in these four parshes, because Golus is marked by dreams. And in the last class that we had, which was before Yom Tov, we talked about the phenomena of dreams. What did we say about dreams? Realities are confused. There's an entanglement. But on the other hand, when a person dreams, they're able to confront issues that when they're awake they could never confront because they're too painful. So there's a reparative quality in dreams. Said in other words, when you dream, you're not fully cognizant, you're not fully aware. But it allows you to do things that you would never do when you're awake. And the nimshal is the Jewish people in Golus are in a dreamlike state. Everything is numbed down considerably, very, very much, compared to I was in times of the Beis HaMikdash. But we're able to do certain corrections that if we would be awake, in other words, if it be the people that lived in times of the Beis HaMikdash, we could never do those kinds of things because it's too acute, it's too sharp. So this is the mashal for dreams we talked about last. Now, the beginning of Parshas Vayeshev sets up Golus, right? Yaakov is living in the Holy Land, surrounded by his family and his wealth, and his son Yosef, whom he favors. And Yosef has dreams. Those dreams set up a power play. They set up a conflict, a political division between Yosef and his brothers, where the brothers become jealous of Yosef. They become paranoid of Yosef. They start to think that Yosef has delusions of grandeur. Now, Yosef didn't have delusions of grandeur. He actually dreamt those things. And he didn't dream those things because all day long he fantasized about them, and therefore at night he dreamt what he fantasized about. God planted those dreams in his mind. In other words, these dreams are prophetic. They have a truth to them. And if you recall, one of the many classes we had before, Yosef tells his brothers the dreams with the understanding that if they'll interpret the dreams negatively, that's how the dreams will occur. And instead of interpreting the dreams negatively, interpret the dreams positively, and they become angry with him. He told them the dreams because he's hoping they'll undo the obvious message of the dreams. They support the obvious message of the dreams, and they get upset by it. So in other words, in the dreams of Yosef, we're not yet in Golus. We're anticipating Golus. What Golus will be is represented by Yosef HaTzadik's dreams. So we have to move on now to the specifics. What specifically did Yosef dream? So let's give this a framework. The framework is, we are embarking on Golus. We're about to leave the Holy Land and go off into exile. And if I may insert here, there is one thing that happened in the story of Genesis which would never happen again in Golus. And that is going into Golus with honor. Yaakov Avinu came to Mitzrayim with all the honor in the world, all the wealth in the world. Usually you go into Golus in chains and with much blood, God forbid. Right? This was unusual. It was unusual because of the honor of Yaakov Avinu. Hashem played this whole game that the Jewish people should go into Golus. Instead of going into Golus with shackles of iron, they should go into Golus with honor. So in this respect, the biblical account of Golus is different than the various historical parallels of that initial event. Usually we go into Golus under terrible conditions. Yaakov went into Golus under the best of conditions, but then of course he would pass away, and his children would pass away, the Golus would actually ensue. Fine. But putting that detail aside, Yosef is dreaming about what the future Golus will hold. And we want to understand how in his dreams is represented not only what would happen to him and his brothers in the immediate time after his dreams, but how the specifics of Yosef HaTzaddik's dreams are going to represent history, Jewish people, and Jewish people's dreams. Okay? So that's what our class is about today. Now, I have a problem. My problem is that we're learning the Rebbe Sichos, which means I can only teach you what the Rebbe taught. Or to be more precise, I can only teach you what the Rebbe taught and edited. Right? There's so much Torah from the Rebbe which is unedited. We're not learning unedited Sichos as a rule, and to be honest, I didn't look. I actually, for a moment this morning, contemplated looking up an unedited Sicha, but I didn't. Here's a Sicha that's going to explain to us the specifics of Yosef's dreams, but the Rebbe is going to skip a very important part. He's not going to discuss the philosophy with us. He's going to go straight to the practical message. He doesn't explain it to a scholar on a scholar level. So he says, this is the practical message of Yosef's dreams. We need to add to that. As we learn this Sicha, we want to, in addition to taking the practical messages, appreciate the philosophy of Golos as is represented by the specifics of these dreams. So that's our task, to learn this Sicha, and as we always do, we're going to learn only what's underlined. And our endeavor is that as we learn this, we will extract from the Rebbe's words an insight into the nature of Golos as represented by these dreams, both philosophically and as a consequence also practically. Okay? Now, I want to give you a heads up. I want to tell you something up front. There are 2 dreams and there are 4 points. Point number 1, that the brothers are bundling bundles. Point number 2, they're bowing to... They're bundling bundles. Remember, Ma'amal, they're collecting bundles of wheat in the field. Number 2, that their bundles bow, prostrate themselves to Yosef's bundle. Remember that? Number 3, that we're compared to the stars. And all we're doing is glistening in the light, in the night, gleaning in the night. We're not bundling any bundles. And number 4, we're bowing to Yosef again. Those are the 4 components of the dreams that the Rebbe is going to explore, and that we want to be able to identify and understand. In other words, I'm going to learn the Sicha, but I want to learn into the Sicha the unwritten part of the Sicha. The unwritten part of the Sicha is not only the practical message, but the philosophical principle that the message has. The difference is the philosophical message is timeless. The practical message is timely. Okay? Are we good? Okay, let's read inside. And remember, I read only the underlined. If you will follow me, you won't get lost. The 2 dreams that Yosef had was their main from beide chalemes. The intent of both of those dreams is given. Their zelber is similar. They have beide merames given. They both indicated as Yosef at gewaltige in seine Brüder will rule over his brothers, und sie werden sich zu ihm bucken. They will bow down to him. Right? That's what the dreams are about. Darf man verstehen, second comment to understand, was seien die 2 besondere Inyanim von die chalemes? Why are there 2 dreams? If there are 2 dreams, there have to be 2 ideas. What's the difference between 2 ideas? Und was ist die Herauf und sei für uns? What's the message in it for us? Weil wie gerät kam upon, says Rabbi, I've said so many times, is doch meise Avos, everything our fathers and mothers do, was in dem gehen rein euch, die Passierungen von Yosef, which includes not just Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but Yosef and his brothers as well, have to have a lesson for us in our lives, and therefore we want to know what the lesson is. So there's 2 questions. Number 1, what do they mean? And specifically, what do they mean by the virtue of the fact that they were in a dream? They're a Golos-like prediction. And number 2, what's the practical lesson? What do the dreams mean? Specifically, what do the dreams mean vis-a-vis Golos? Beis, der Unterschied von den 2 Chalemes von Yosef is, the difference between the 2 dreams is very simple. Der erste Chalem is given wegen erdische Sachen. The first dream is about earthly things. Right there in a field, they're farmers, they're cutting wheat, and then making bundles out of it. So they were bundling bundles in a field. When the zweite Chalem, the second dream, is wegen Hashemesh v'hayareach v'achados lekechavim, with the sun, the moon, and the stars. In other words, in Yoni Shamayim, matters of the heavens. And of course the question is, why 2 dreams? Why these two themes, earth and heaven, and why in this order? Says the Rebbe, the answer is, page 11 now, by Yosef is given der Seder von Meilam HaKodesh. Yosef's philosophy of life was that you ascend in holiness. You go from a lower level to a higher level. Vos amol als hecher in kedusha. You periodically go higher in holiness, and therefore, first you dream about a lower level, which is an earthly matter. Und später, and only afterwards, wegen, you dream about a heavenly matter. Hashemesh, v'ayereach, v'achadosek yechavim, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars. So the answer to the question is yes, two dreams, because they represent 2 points. But it's not 2 points per se, it's representing the idea of growth. It can be 100 points, but 2 dreams are enough. Because the 2 dreams are saying what? You're going in the direction of heaven. Earth to heaven, lower to higher. The only way to communicate this is by having 2 separate dreams. One is a more earthly dream and the other is more heavenly dream. Continues the Rebbe, this is the basic difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. And there's differences even as we are on this earth, that even though we're in this world, a person is connected to both worlds. We're connected not only to the physicality of this world, also the spirituality of the other world. Okay. In Yiddishkeit, we ascend from lower levels to higher levels. And this ascent from lower levels to higher levels is represented by these 2 dreams. Now, girls, I'm skipping something that I underlined. And I want you to go 6 lines from the bottom of that column. Okay, page 11, the 3rd column, first column, 6 lines to the bottom. And the Seder from the Fabun, and the nature of our connection to HaKadosh Baruch is Milmato Lamaila, from lower to higher. Sulo Mutzavarza, the ladder stands on the ground. V'reish Magiah Shemaim, and then it reaches up into the heavens. Sulam, the ladder, is that Avodah Leida von Ayidin, it's the worship ladder of a Jew. Hey Psichon von Niderike in Yonim Arts, that begins with low earthly things. Und von dem der Gerechter, and from this one ascends and reaches bis to the hechste Ruchnias de Kamadreges, till the highest spiritual levels, Hashemayim of the heavens. Now girls, I want to make a point. We understand that this is all dreams and they're metaphors for Golos. There's something very compelling here. What do we always say? We meaning Lubavitchers today, based on the philosophy of the Rebbe. We say, Chatayf achel, chatayf ishti. Eat, grab and drink. We don't say, well, am I on the level of doing this yet? Am I on the level of doing this yet? Am I holding by it? We say you can do something good, grab and eat, grab and drink. In other words, the philosophy of life that we have vis-a-vis Yiddishkeit is that we're not climbing a ladder from lower to higher. We're just grabbing goodies from any shelf we can get them. In other words, our philosophy of addressing the Golos seems to be quite different than the Rebbe is saying here. Yosef is dreaming. And there's an order to dreams. Think about that. An order to dreams means, a dream means disorder. A dream means that nothing makes sense. So the message is, it looks to you like there is no order. You look at your life and you say, I'm going no place. It's a big circle going around and around and around. Says the Rebbe, you may not see it because you're a part of the Golos. But you should know that Yosef HaTzadik, who foretells, who predicts the phenomena of Golos, is teaching you whether you see it or you don't see it. Golos is going from point A to point B. It's sometimes very difficult to identify. You understand? So there's a very compelling message here. In our lives, we don't see order, we see disorder, we see survival. So the Pasuk is saying that's your perception. If you could step outside of the Golos and look at the Golos objectively, you will see that you're actually going from a lower level to a higher level. Now this the Rebbe doesn't say in the Sikha, you understand? This is my commentary on the Sikha. If we can step out of our lives, which is very difficult to do, we can see that we're going someplace. It's true, it really is true. We're so caught up. If we look back, right, I don't know how old you are, I know how old I am. I look back at my life, it's a lot of wasted time and inefficiency. But when you look at the totality of it, you say, listen, It's not perfect, but I am going from point A to point B. All of us have that experience. It's just messy. It's just inefficient.
You're saying like if we look at it as just like there's only Hashem and
Wait, we're talking specifically about Golus. I'm not talking about the world. Golus. Golus has a very specific definition. What's Golus? Things don't make sense. There's disorder. And again, you missed the last 3 classes, which is why you're asking these questions. Golus represents a circumstance where everything is messed up, and we're numb. The reason things are messed up is because we messed them up, which I went into Golus. We're numb is because only in a state of numbness can we heal them and bring about Geula. So we, as part of the Golus, don't feel, we're not clear, and we don't see order. But Yosef, who's foretelling the Golus, is saying you are going from point A to point B. It just doesn't look that way. What I'm telling you is you'll look at your own life, you'll see it also, if you step out of the moment. So it's not the world, it's the Golus world. The Geula world is a very different kind of world. Golus world is defined by disorder, and Yosef HaTzadik says even when you're dreaming, you're going from point A to point B. Okay, alle in Yonim von Teda sind doch bediuk, everything in Teda is precise. Und jede Prat von Zeh, every single detail, is a lesson in avoiding service. Is moving, it's understood that it's not enough to take one message. What's the one message? That you go from heaven to earth to heaven, pardon me. During times of Golus, you have to take specifics. So the Rebbe says, I want to go into the details. Turn to page 12. Page 12. Second underlined paragraph, not the one that begins with the next one. The Ersha Chalein von Yosef in Hepzachon v'hinei anachtum alma malumim b'teich hasoda. We're collecting bundles in a field. Correct? What's the first message? Yosef Chalein is heben sich bald on mit arbet mit avoida. In Golus, you work. Work is Jewish. It's the first message. We're not here to be consumers. We're here to work. The Rebbe has a sikha based on a medrash that Avraham Avinu was traveling the world, and it came to Tyre, which is now Lebanon, and he met people who are hardworking, resourceful, and Avraham says, "I want to live here." Hard work is not to earn money. Hard work is to work hard. Period. If you have all the money in the world and you're just a lazy, overweight slouch, you're not a human being. The reward for work is work. So the first message of Yosef's dream is, in Golus we work. It's not for free. It's a basic part of the Jewish ideal. We work. I have all the money in the work, I need to work. Was das ist der allgemeine Unterschied zwischen Kedusha and Klipa, that's the difference in Kedusha and Klipa. In Klipa is lav dafka de chaveda. In Klipa, you have to work if you have no choice, but you would much rather not work. Right? I can get it for free. Why should I work? But in Kedusha, if you have it for free, it's embarrassment. It's shameful. In Mitzrayim, in Klipat, mir gegeben Essen Chinam, ohne Avede von Mitzvahs. Aber in Kedusha, in the Dokke, top of page 13, al Name de Chizufa, there's no such thing as bread of shame. Yeder am shocho nashpo mo maila kumt nor durch Avede. This is the first message. Golus is a tumult. It's a chaos. It's a disorder. It's lack of clarity. But what you need to do is work. You may not be sure what work you're supposed to do. You may have a hard time figuring out where you're holding and where you came from, where you're going to. But one thing will never change. Work. Work is good. Work is Jewish. And that's the first message. Okay, next paragraph. Ma'almim alumim. Designing from v'achim abin tzanoiv di alumim. These are individual stalks of wheat that are bundled together. So each one grows separately. And then you're gathering them together. Translates the Rebbe, the bottom of this first column, page 13. The neshama von Yidden comes to the Lata in Sadeh Elam Hazah. The soul of a Jew comes into this world, which is a field. Was is an art from Peter. It's a divisive place. It's a pluralistic place. From Klipa, it's a bunch of individual stalks of wheat, and you're tying everything together. The tutzachon in aguf u'nefesh abahamif. You go into a body and animal soul, and ma'al malum. You're tying things together. The second message of Golus is you're making e pluribus unum, from many one. Message 1, you work. Message 2, the nature of your work is to unify, to find Achtos, where there is Pirut. This we do even in Golus. This is all Yosef's dreams.
What do we unify again?
Everything that's split, everything that's divided. We unify the different parts of ourselves, we unify different parts of our family, we unify different parts of our community, and ultimately we want to unify the whole world. That's the direction of Golus. You have different parts of yourself. There's your brain, there's your heart. There's your kindness, and then there's your discipline. They're in conflict. They contradict each other. Sometimes you do one thing, sometimes you do other things. But you often find they're contradictory. Making many into one means creating harmony in yourself. Figuring out how to join together your mind and your heart, your compromise on your principle, and so on and so forth. Now, if you understand that in yourself, think about that in a family. Think about that in a community. You understand? It's very simple.
What was it in the dream? In the dream, it was
The same principle. Many into one. Many individual stalks are being tied into a bond. Okay, now in Maimori Hasidus on this, they bring that this is called about collecting sparks. Sparks of godliness that are trapped in Klippa and bringing them back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the Rebbe doesn't bring it in the Sikh. So we have so far 3 messages from Yosef's dreams, right? Message number 1, that even in a dream there's order. You're going from a lower level to a higher level. Message number 2, there's work. And message number 3, you're making from many into one. Now girls, we're out of time. So I'm going to give you the last several points without reading them, because I want to save time, and you're welcome to read the words that I underlined at your own leisure. I really need to let the next teacher teach. The next point is you're bowing down to Yosef. The collective us, all of us. Bowing down to Yosef HaTzadik. And now I'm going to use my own words because it's the best way to do this, I think. Yosef represents the Rebbe, the leader of the generation. What's special about the leader of the generation? However you want to explain it, he has clarity. We're all in Golus, we're all asleep, yeah? He's with us in Golus, but he has clarity. Never do you need a Rebbe more than in Golus, because you're never sure. In times of Geula, you have clarity. If you have clarity, you can choose your own path. In times of confusion, when you're living a dream and you're working and you're making many into one and trying to climb from earth to heaven, you need somebody to tell you what to do. Please close the door. Bowing down to Yosef represents staying loyal to a message. Staying loyal to a message which we by ourselves will never know what it is. You need Yosef HaTzadik, who's, so to speak, above the haze and the dream of Golus. And if you don't bow down to Yosef, then you make many into one, and you may actually be going around and around in a circle. You're not going from heaven to earth to heaven, pardon me. Because only Yosef can lead you from here to there. So you always need a leader. But you never need a leader more when you're groping in the darkness, which is what Golus is. This is another point in Yosef's dreams, that in addition to going from a lower level to a higher level and working hard and bringing many into one, you need to be loyal to somebody who has a clarity, who can keep you on the right path. And then you become a star. A star means you ascend to a level, and I'm going to add this, although the Rebbe doesn't say this in the Sikha, that perhaps even higher than what you would be if you were not in a dream, if you were awake. And now there's not work. There's no more work. You're a star. You're shining light. You're not working, you're not making many into one, you're a shining light. And the Rebbe says, but you know what's still true? You still need to bow to Yosef. Even when you ascend to a level where you're a star, and your role in this land is not to work and to make many into one, but to shine a light, you still need Yosef. No matter how great a person is, only one has a sense of clarity of purpose and mission, and when we stop looking to that person, the goal is going nowhere. So the Rebbe explains this on a practical level. We want to understand it in a philosophical way. In a philosophical way, the principles are: Golus is a confusion. Golus starts from the lowest levels and you can reach very, very high levels. Golus is based on work. Golus is based on the understanding that we don't necessarily know by ourselves what to do and where to go. We need to turn to our leaders who will give us that clarity.